All right, friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org with breaking news that I've been covering for years. And this is today, Tuesday, October 22nd. It's 2024, and the headlines are screaming that Andrew Doe, well, he's a felon because he has pleaded guilty to felony charges that I have been shouting from the rooftops for the last several years. I feel vindicated. Now, I don't know if this plea deal is going to reduce his time, his hard time behind bars. I told him before I was going to see him behind bars, and many of you are already saying, let's find out when visiting hours are, and I'll go with you, Peggy. Let me break this down for those of you that have not been following this horrid story of theft and bribery and fraud and deceit and deception and communism and all these other things. I have an entire playlist on my channel called Board of Supervisors. I've got dozens of videos that detail my testimony and my investigation of all of the laws that these crooks, cronies, frauds, fakes, and phonies, that kind of rhymes, doesn't it, have been violating over the last several years of what I call the hogwash. Now, regardless of where you stand on politics and whether or not you have decided to self-suffocate or become a human pincushion, you have to agree that the violation of the law is something that you wouldn't stand for. And it's funny, when I went back and I've been watching my previous testimony, which, by the way, I'm going to be doing a few follow-up videos on this topic. And I am going to bring to you some clips of previous videos where I called these guys on the carpet. I mean, take a look at this one photo. I'm just like incensed. I'm yelling at the guy, and let me share my screen. We'll take a look at this felon, as I'm now going to refer to him as Felon Doe. And here he is in his little black and white Masonic tie. And here I am in one of my dozens of videos in the early days, just exclaiming and having a good old fashioned rant over how inept and I guess they're just imbeciles or intentionally deceiving everyone related to all of the laws that they were violating. So this one was a funny one called See You in Court, Supervisors. Not that funny, but just by way of telling you that I have dozens and dozens of videos, I mean, probably well over 100, all about the fraud that these serpents, as I call them, have been engaged in. So there he is, front and center, Andrew Doe, looking as smug as ever. And I don't want to let anyone forget that he came from communist Vietnam, and apparently he still has communism or just corruption running in his veins, because that's exactly what he's been involved in. So LAist is I don't know if it's a regular newspaper, but it's definitely online. And they have been doing deep dive investigations that I have been using for my videos to expose this man. And many of you joined me in writing to the FBI and requiring, like firmly requesting, that they investigate these charges of fraud to the tune of, well over $10 million that has been funneled illegally to his cronies, his communist cronies. And the story now is a little bit twisted, where he pleaded guilty to bribery, saying that he was bribed by the Vietnamese mafia. I guess that's the only logical conclusion that I can draw. But is that really what happened, or did he instigate it? You see, I don't even believe that he was bribed. I believe that it was he was the brains behind it, and that he decided to funnel this money to his daughter, who also is under investigation. I'm going to read to you the headlines and a little bit more of what LAist came up with. I will have a deep dive Substack, probably several of these. I already have several Substacks about the mind-boggling corruption of Andrew Doe doling out the dough to his daughter, Rhiannon Doe. And the interesting thing is, there was not a law on the books in California that prevented money going to a company that one of your relatives or family members worked for. Okay, let's say that's fine and good, but they never did anything that they said they were going to do. It was a sham, fake, phony, fraudulent company. It was a shell company. And I did a deep dive there where we investigated the website. There was no information given in terms of what they were doing. All they had was a list of phone numbers so that you could go to other organizations that were actually doing the work of feeding the hungry and helping the needy. And by the way, those organizations already existed. Why did more of your hard-earned tax dollars have to go to that just because of the cooties hogwash? None of that made sense to me either. So in the very early days of the hogwash, hundreds of us, thousands of us would go to the Board of Supervisor meetings. Probably you went in your state as well. And we were pointing out and questioning all of these contracts that were being given outside of the public eye. Now, I have my testimony from my deposition in the lawsuit that I filed against this corrupt Board of Supervisors, the stupid visors. They've earned their names now. And this was simply for them to hold a meeting in public to determine whether or not this fraudulent so-called local health emergency should continue, because there was no evidence for it to do so. They would not hold the meeting. So this lawsuit that I filed in 2021 was not about money. It was about having a court tell these serpents to hold the meeting. And that case got tossed around like a hot potato, because guess why? Well, this dodo bird's wife was, until she resigned or decided not to seek the office again, she was the #2 presiding judge in the criminal courts in Orange County. No wonder my case was being tossed around like a hot potato until the clock ran out. And then the judge, inept, corrupt, clown court said, oh, I guess it's moot. The governor ended the emergency. Well, that was the whole point of the lawsuit. The governor doesn't have the right to end a local emergency. Only a local board can do so, and this board neglected to do so. So that potentially is up for appeal. But I want to tell you, let me tell you what I put in my deposition. I was on to these frauds in the beginning. I've got hundreds of videos where I'm calling out their corruption, and the chickens have come home to roost. I'm actually celebrating today. This guy is a felon. He admitted, he pleaded guilty to the bribery, which is a felony. But, you know, I don't even think he accepted bribes. I think he was the instigator. And I think he's trying to get off instead of a, 30-year or life prison sentence. He's trying to just go to 5 years. You know what? 5 years is good, a good start in my book. So what I alleged in my lawsuit is simple. I said, these frauds, these public serpents are keeping this fake, phony, fraudulent hogwash going so that they can continue to drain your pockets of your hard-earned tax dollars and the money that they're printing out of thin air from the federal government so that they can line their own pockets and profit from it personally. That was in my petition. So I went through a deposition, which is where I was on the hot seat, even though I was innocent. It's like, it's so backwards. None of those serpents showed up for their depositions, by the way. And I had to pay for the privilege of being deposed by 5. There were 4 in person and 1 additional one from the governor's office, who was also closely watching my case. And it was against me and my attorney. And here is what they asked me. I want to read to you from the transcript of my deposition. And the attorney says, you allege in your complaint that I was calling them serpents, continue to receive federal funds and benefit personally from them. How do you know this? And I said, through their own statements at the board meetings. And she said, what statements? And I said, how they have allocated their funds to their districts, how they have added to their own staff, and they were putting together task forces. Now, I'm going to show you more evidence of this, where Doe hired and gave an outrageous salary to an unqualified person. And again, this is what bothers me. It's the nepotism. It's the blatant, in your face, like F you to us. And I don't even use that kind of language, but you can see I'm quite incensed. It is, they are thumbing their noses at us. They are ridiculing we, the electorate, by saying we could care less about you. So the attorney says, how does that benefit them personally? And there was a few objections, went back and forth. And I said, well, for example, Katrina Foley, she said, if we terminate the emergency, we won't keep getting the funds. And the attorney said, well, how is that benefiting her personally? I said, so she can appear to her constituents that she's getting money from the state and federal government and giving it to businesses for the relief, therefore positioning herself for reelection. That was just one example. And then the attorney says to me, you made an allegation that they're keeping the emergency going so they can line their pockets. And I said, over the last 2 years, because I filed this lawsuit in 2021, so it was 2020, 2021, there have been contracts going through that did not, and then the attorney interrupts me. You seem to know very well how the county operates, because I said, I'm not exactly sure how it operates, but there were contracts that were signed at certain meetings, and we were presented with millions of dollars that were going to vendors for cooties stuff. There were many. And in my view, there were dozens, no, not in my view. And there were dozens of other contracts where the emergency funds were going there, in my view, unnecessarily and excessively. All right. And then I say that the amount of money given to the contractors for the scope of work was excessive. That's exactly what this is all about. He gave millions and millions of dollars to a nonprofit that hired his daughter, who created another fake, phony, fraudulent nonprofit that had none of the paperwork in order. And again, let's say, all right, he gave the money to his daughter. Well, she didn't do anything with it. She never did anything other than buy a couple of houses, and they were paying off credit cards and all of this other stuff. The FBI is now investigating what I've been saying for years, and the ridiculous clowns in the Orange County court that this dodo bird's wife is the head of told me that my case was moot, that it had no validity. It had no basis. You know what? So maybe I was the honorary person to bring this information forward. And I don't really care about that, aside from all of the thousands and thousands of dollars that I spent in this lawsuit. But the fact is, the federal government, the district court in Central California, the largest district court in the entire United States, went after this guy quickly within less than a year. All of this came out around November of 2023. I started reporting on it in January in terms of the hard facts about, Doe, D-O-U-G-H, doling out the dough to his daughter, Rhiannon Doe, and how she was not doing anything with it, and it was a sham company. Several of us called. We never got a phone call back. That's not evidence of any wrongdoing, but the fact that the website just spun around, and every time you would click on something, it would say coming soon. There was no work being done by this fake company that was basically there to launder the money. He pleaded guilty. The daughter pleaded guilty, but they probably are doing that to, point the finger at these other guys that offered them bribes. It's despicable. I don't even know if justice is going to be served. So the day-long deposition that I went through goes on, but basically I alleged in my lawsuit that they kept this fake, phony, fraudulent hogwash of an emergency going so that they could line their own pockets. Otherwise, why would they keep doing it? And now it's all coming out. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I will be doing other videos where I'm going to do some clips of my previous videos where I am pointing the finger at them, saying, I'm going to see you in court. You belong behind bars. And I don't want to laugh about it, but I told this doe, I told him, I said, you are not above the law. I said, a previous chairman in that seat that you're sitting in right now spent hard time behind bars. You are going to do the same. And he is, if there is justice to be served. So anyhow, this is breaking news. I barely had time to pull it all together. I will be doing more deep dives in the coming days, but let me share with you a very quick video. And, the videos are kind of hard to hear. On the, let's see if I even have it here for you. The videos are kind of, where is that? Hard to hear when I am streaming live, but let's see if I've got that for you, friends. Let me know if you heard about this, if you knew about this, and here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and this is one of several news stories. I have a link for you in my Substack. Let's do it.
We begin with breaking news. An Orange County supervisor admitting to a bribery conspiracy. Federal law enforcement officials this morning announcing Supervisor Andrew Doe has agreed to plead guilty. And Anna and Michelle, this investigation has been going on for quite some time.
Amy, yes, it has, and it involves many different people. Now, the total loss is estimated to be about $10 million in taxpayer money. This is money that was supposed to be used, COVID money, for the elderly and for the disadvantaged during the pandemic. But just a small portion of the money, according to officials, actually made it to the people who it was intended for. The U.S. attorney saying that Andrew Doe used that money to fill the pockets of insiders and his family.
Friends, I alleged this in my lawsuit years ago. I feel vindicated that it is getting out here.
I'm here today joined by our local and federal law enforcement partners and leaders.
This guy is the lead attorney for the Central District Court in California, the largest federal court district in the United States. Orange County, Riverside, LA, Santa Barbara, and a few more.
Announced a major public corruption case against Orange County politician Andrew Doe.
Just thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All of this work has not been for nothing.
Andrew Doe, who is the longest serving current member of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, has agreed, according to officials, to plead guilty to stealing from some of the neediest people in the county.
They involve a scheme to steal COVID-19 relief funds and to receive bribe payments. The scheme essentially functioned like Robin Hood in reverse. Mr. Doe and his conspirators stole money from the poor to give to themselves.
U.S. Attorney Martina Estrada says Andrew Doe's two daughters were also involved in the scheme and that the Doe family received over $700,000 in bribe payments.
I'm sure we can probably add another zero to that to bump it up to more like 7 million or more. I think this is the tip of the iceberg.
Andrew Doe has agreed as part of
the Masonic bow tie there. Everyone pick that up. Yeah.
His plea agreement to forfeit 2 homes in Santa Ana and Tustin that were purchased, according to the U.S. attorney, using proceeds from the scheme.
You can see through joint bank accounts that money was funneled in from various entities that the COVID money had gone to. And in the agreement, Rhiannon Doe was getting $8,000 a month funneled back to her. And the other daughter got over $100,000 funneled through this COVID money. And so the monies were used to pay off American Express cards, Mr. Doe's American Express card, pay the property taxes of their home in Westminster and the home in North Tustin.
Now we received this from Andrew Doe's lawyer, Paul Meyer, excuse me. It is appropriate to convey Andrew Doe's sincere apology and deep sadness to his family, to his constituents in District 1, and to his colleagues. Now, we should tell you that Andrew Doe is out of custody at this time.
Probably on a boat back to communist Vietnam, where his ways are likely more approved of. Yeah, we don't like that stuff here.
It is unclear when he will make his first court appearance. He has resigned as part of this plea agreement from the Orange County Board of Supervisors. His term was ending at the end of this year, and there will be an election to fill that seat. Andrew Doe is facing 5 years in federal prison, again, according to this plea agreement. And I should also mention that Andrew Doe's wife is the assistant presiding judge here in Orange County.
What a coinky-dink! I don't know what the Vietnamese word is for mafia.
When we asked the officials what she may have known about the alleged activity of her husband and her daughters, all the officials would say is this investigation continues. That's the latest live in Santa Ana. I'm Michelle Geely. Back to you.
Okay, let's take a look over here. And this is the LAist. And that is really has been at the forefront of breaking this and doing all of the investigation. Nick Gerda, I hope, will have some security around him because he really has done a fabulous job breaking all of this news. So I'm I'm going to take it off the screen share, but I will read to you so you'll know where I am getting this info in terms of the summary. And I'm going to take a look at your comments as well. This will be the only video for today, and then I'm going to spend my time pulling together more information and some of the screen grabs and little video clips over the years where I was pointing this out and I felt like it was falling on deaf ears. It's kind of funny because in the early days when I would go to the Board of Supervisor meetings, I had shorter hair there and I was so polite. And I was like, oh, thank you very much, supervisors. I think I called them senators. Thank you for letting me come here today to speak. There's a law that you might not be aware of. I was so polite and so sweet until all of the tyranny and oppression rained down and toughened me up. And it's interesting when you see some of those early videos. And then at the end, I'm pretty much, in terms of my testimony in front of the board, I'm pretty much just calling them out saying, this is the lawsuit. I'm going to see you in court. And I guess I'm going to see him behind bars. So Andrew Doe, this is the summary. Andrew Doe has resigned as Orange County supervisor and agreed to plead guilty to a conspiracy to steal millions of dollars meant to feed needy seniors following a months-long LAist investigation and federal probe. Now, I do want to have to make another comment, though. I don't want any of this to feed the narrative that any of this money was needed. It was all blood money. Why in the cooties debacle would suddenly these restaurants and things need money anyway? I'm in favor of a free market, of limited government. I'm not in favor of all of these billions of dollars, billions and billions. And I've done videos previously, not just about Orange County, but about all over the corruption that has been involved. The biggest grift in the United States history and the transfer of wealth, if you want to call it that. I don't really like that phrase, but that happened with these they don't care funds. That's what I call them. They don't care. It was called the CARES Act. Yeah, they don't care. The Careless Act funds. We would go to these meetings. We would hear about all these millions of dollars flooding in. And in Orange County, the supervisors looked around and said, well, there's 5 of us and we each have a district. Let's just take the money and divide it up 5 ways. And each one of us can decide where it goes. And we're all like, well, that's not how it works. You have to have contracts that are under competitive bid. We want to see who they are. And I've done videos in the past where I showed all this money that was going to cooties testing. And it was like Vietnamese names. And I have nothing against Vietnamese people. I have Vietnamese friends. What I have is I do have something against communists and frauds and phonies and felons and cheating and stealing. Oh, that's what I have a problem with. And when I saw that he was giving away all this money, and I would do my own investigation on these companies that just started, they just were created. So we were all stunned by what was going on. We didn't really know how to fight back other than to voice our opinion as the months went on. And I really did a lot of deep digging into the laws, and I could see the violations in terms of the health emergency laws were just stunning. That was the basis of my lawsuit. And I wish that I had gone to one of these supervisor meetings while he was under, well, he didn't show up. Doe didn't show up. So I could just look him in the eye and say, I told you so, Dodo. You didn't pull the wool over my eyes. I knew you were bad news from the get-go. So I don't want to feed the narrative that, oh, they stole from the poor, needy seniors. No, the seniors weren't needy. They already had programs in place. They already had their Meals on Wheels and all of that. This was a grab bag from the get-go. So I don't really care for this Robin Hood theme that they're spinning. The fact is the guy's a liar, a cheat, a fraud, and a phony, period. So the criminal charges and the plea deal were announced Tuesday morning, today, by U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada at a news conference in downtown Santa Ana. Out of the $9.3 million, interesting number, isn't it? That's why I still kind of raise my eyebrows at some of this. I don't know how much people are in on it. I don't know if this is just, I'm reading into things, but I can't help but notice it. That's what investigators do. They find little bits of evidence and then they set it aside in case they need it later. So they said only 15% went to people in need. Yeah. Mr. Dodo and his co-conspirators stole money from the poor. Well, no, they stole money from you, all right? Your tax dollars. That's where it came from, your tax dollars that went into his pocket, just like I alleged in the lawsuit. Doe agreed to plead guilty, and he signed a plea agreement. Now, this is where I get a little, I don't think this is good. I would like to have seen him go through an entire trial. He signed a plea agreement to 1 count of conspiracy, or I don't know if there's a trial or what exactly happens in these federal cases. 1 count of conspiracy to commit bribery. Okay, that sounds very, very small potatoes compared to everything that he actually did do. And maybe that's different. I have to look into this in terms of bribery and fraud. And he broke the public trust. He stole our money. He defrauded his fiduciary responsibility. There are so many counts that he is liable for. So I don't really care that this has all been funneled down to 1 count of conspiracy to commit bribery. He should be locked up for the rest of his life. He consciously made these choices. He faces a possible 5-year prison term. I don't care for that phrase either. What are they going to say? He's off for a good time or something? So we're going to see this through. It says he accepted over $550,000 in bribes for directing and voting in favor of more than $10 million in these funds to a charity affiliated, a fake charity affiliated with his daughter, Rhiannon Doe. And apparently there's another daughter in the mix that I had never heard of, also getting $100 million. I mean, $100,000 might as well be million. And I think they're all covering their tracks with these plea deals and everything. Yeah. Oh, he only got 550 out of the 10 million. Yeah, right. In what the attorney's office described as a package deal, I don't care for that either. Rhiannon Doe admitted to filing a falsified mortgage application that disguised her use of taxpayer dollars in the purchase of a home. That's probably a much lesser crime, a falsified mortgage application. In my view, I haven't done all the investigation yet. I'm sure that's a much less crime than creating a fake, phony, fraudulent sham of a company and then to have all that money funneled in and then to buy property and pay off credit cards with it. That's fraud. All right. So it calls for her, she's 23 years old, to be placed on 3 years probation. No, I reject that. I think that is ridiculous. Doe admitted in his plea agreement that $381,500 in public funds were transferred to an escrow company and used by his daughter to purchase the home in Tustin for $1 million. And that now has been taken back, including Andrew Doe's. Through the investigation, investigators seized more than $2.4 million in illicit proceeds generated in the scheme. That's far more than the $500,000 they're talking about. So yeah, this goes deeper. It says that Estrada said the U.S. Attorney's Office began their investigation when they saw media reports, hello, I'm the media as well, about how then SUPERVISOR Doe had directed money to the Viet American Society. Now, LA List is the one that broke the story, and I used their investigation to enhance my coverage, but I also had my own personal experience of going there to the Board of Supervisors, suing them, alleging this fraud. So I'm grateful that, and all of you healthy Americans that emailed the Department of Justice and directed the FBI, insisted that the FBI do this investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office says we take action when we see these reports. We brought our federal partners into the case to fully investigate, and we discovered this extensive and very troubling bribery. I don't like that. I think it's far more than bribery. Orange County DA Todd Spitzer echoed the seriousness of the findings. He says the money was literally stolen out of the mouths of our most vulnerable residents. I don't care for that narrative either. It was stolen out of your pocket. They already had programs in place. They had multiple programs. All of Orange County has redundant programs for helping the needy. And I really hope that they're not fraudulent like these are. So I didn't understand this whole concept of the blood money coming out for the cooties thing. So it goes on that they received all this money and they paid off American Express cards, property taxes on their home. It's just absolutely Spitzer, who's the Orange County DA, was sharply critical of the Orange County Board of Supervisors for allowing the allocation of tens of millions of dollars in the cooties relief money to be distributed outside of public view. Hello, thousands of us protested against that for years, Spitzer. Where were you? Well, I know where you were, Spitzer. You were allowing a criminal case to go against a healthy American who was shopping in Mother's Market in Irvine, breathing oxygen. That's what you were doing, Spitzer. You could have thrown out that case. You let that case go to trial, and she was found guilty of breathing oxygen in a supermarket while everybody else had their safety devices on. That's what you were doing, Spitzer. So no, I'm not in favor of any of these serpents. They're just trying to cover their own behinds. I wouldn't be surprised if Katrina Foley on this board and Don Wagner, who was on the board, the others have already flown the coop. They are the two remaining serpents that were in the midst of all of this money. I would like to see where Don Wagner's money went. I would like to see where Katrina Foley's money went. So this might all be pointing, Doe is definitely guilty, but I would like to see about all of these others. So no, I'm not applauding all of it 100%. I'm grateful that this man, this Doe, is going to go down in shame and disgrace, and he'll never be able to hold public office again. Although I'm sure some of his cronies will give him a nice paying job in little Saigon. Doe was bragging about providing 2,700 meals a week. Meanwhile, the elderly were dying, Spitzer said. Well, I don't even have evidence. I don't know where the evidence of that is either. So I think some of this is a little dramatic. Attorneys Paul Meyer and Craig Wilkie, who represented former Anaheim Mayor Sidhu, sounds Indian, just making an observation, on federal corruption charges, are now representing Andrew Doe. Oh, they all fall into the same lot, don't they? The attorney said, out of respect for the legal process. Oh, yes, you have a lot of respect, don't you? No statement is appropriate at this time. However, it is appropriate to convey Andrew. I'm not even going to read that because it's a lie. He's not sorry about anything. They said the former supervisor looked forward to a thorough and fair investigation. All right. And again, his wife is the second in charge in Orange County. Let's take a look at this fellow now. It goes deeper, talking about nepotism and so forth. So this guy here, Chris Wangsaporn, chief of staff to Orange County Supervisor Andrew Doe. So this guy was the chief of staff. And there is another right here. Wangsaporn, then girlfriend, now wife, Josie Batris, was hired by a nonprofit called Mind OC. I've done videos on this before, to carry out she got $275,000 from the Orange County Board of Supervisors to carry out a mental health contract funded by the county. The county officials paid it out in full, but none of the required work was turned into the county. How do you like them apples? Well, them are rotten apples to the core. This is a spider web of involvement, Spitzer says. It's going to take time. We know a lot. We obviously have a lot of documents. We've seized a lot of information from homes. We have a lot of electronic data that's being analyzed that we do not have all the results yet. Serpent Doe submitted his resignation today to Orange County Board of Supervisors Board Chair Don Wagner, who, by the way, and I quote, said, "We're following the science." To which I said, and I quote, "You're supposed to be following the law." Wagner will oversee the District 1 duties until a new supervisor is elected in the upcoming elections. Some of you said, Peggy, why don't you run? Well, I'm not in that district and I don't want to swim in the sea of evil, and I can be far more effective doing what I'm doing, educating, researching, investigating, encouraging, teaching, inspiring, empowering, exhorting you to take action. So all y'all, not you, because you're my healthy Americans, all y'all who stumble across the channel there in the back row that say, why are you even doing this? You know, we already know the ending. It's like, you do it I do it because I have to. I do it because I stand for what is right. I do it because although I have no control over the results, I do have control over my actions. And I am required by my own dignity and integrity and convictions to speak out against injustice. So ideally, justice will be served. I would like to see that man behind bars. However, he is going down in disgrace. A little bit of light now is shining on the evil deeds, and I, for one, am grateful. I'm going to spend a few moments looking at your comments. I'm sure they are just flying in. You can email me, support@thehealthyamerican.org. I'm going to be doing more coverage on this, and I really appreciate this. Do robbers get to return the money they stole and pay back? Janice asks. I don't know if they're required. I think it would be amazing. They should have to pay it back, but I don't know that that would get them out of the prison times. Uada says almost all of these scams include someone's children or other close family members to hide tracks. Jim says, I love what you said, Peggy, when Wagner said, we're following the science. And I said, you're supposed to follow the law. Yeah, we're not a country that runs on the science. And they were trying to hoodwink, bamboozle, and hogwash everyone into thinking that it all had to do with science. That's why I don't care about the ingredients in the cocktails. No, I have a right to life. I have a right to breathe. I have a right to keep my body pure. I don't care whether these things work or not. I care for those who have been bamboozled and coerced under duress, or maybe unwittingly believing the government doing that. I do care about that. But this focus on science and all of that is the wrong focus. That's a red herring. All right. Warren and Kimberly say, where is all the money? And Mighty Smart Mom, Hap says, surprise, surprise, the whole family is in on it. Thank you to Rhonda. Rhonda is the one that sent me the link to this saying, check it out, Peggy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just breaking news right as we're speaking right now. So there will be more. And okay, I love this. Swiss says, in a federal case, if you get found guilty, you must serve every single day of your sentence. There is no early release due to good behavior. That is information I didn't know. This is fantastic. Yes. Okay. Yes, Hap, I'm marching this all the way to heaven. Patricia says, thank you for your courage, tenacity, and commitment to denounce the corruption. You are so loved and appreciated. I appreciate you, Patricia, and all of the Healthy Americans. So many of you have been on with me from the very beginning. And I know it gets tiring to talk about this. I've said it before. I want to shift my coverage to healthy living, for freedom living, for people and pets, so we can live in freedom. And it's pretty much what I do now. But it is very fatiguing to continually shout out against the wind and have it be neglected, denied, ignored, but there's something that drives me that I just can't let go. The other thing is, friends, the law is simple. When people try to tell you that it's really complicated, it's really simple. If you read it, it's there, it's in black and white. When I cobble together some of my previous videos with little snippets of when I was reading them the law, it's so simple. And time again, when I would contact the officers, the offices of the serpents, they would tell me, oh, we're not really up on the law. They literally said that more than once. And I said, well, I'm up on the law and I'm trying to educate you on the law, because I thought they were just ignorant. And it took me a couple of months before I realized they are intentionally evil. That's why I call them serpents. Now, I can't speak for Sarmiento, who is new on the board. But I am talking about, and there's one other, Chafee. I forgot to mention him. He is so condescending and so arrogant. And I probably have a video about that as well, because I had a personal meeting with him in his office. And he was the most insolent, incompetent, rude, condescending, arrogant, conceited man that I've ever met. And I've been around for decades. You would think he would at least humor me with, oh, thank you for coming in. I'll take a look at this. No, he was just so bizarrely, like psychopathically rude. And so I've not seen his name pointing fingers at Dodo Bird. So I would like to see where the money has stuck to his sticky fingers. How about you? Friends, I'm going to wrap up now, and I will be doing more coverage on this as it's breaking. I feel vindicated in the work that I've done, but even if the news hadn't come to this, you and I can still feel validated and like we are standing in our dignity and integrity. We know right from wrong. We are attempting to educate other people about it. And there is value in that. So no, I'm not going to close up shop and fade away. Ideally, we'll be talking about some more uplifting coverage and issues and so forth, because I know it gets fatiguing. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Get on the free Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. After this video wraps up, I will link my playlist called Board of Supervisors. And if you do a search there on Substack, you'll see several of my videos, mind-boggling corruption of Orange County supervisors, and Doe is handing out the dough to his daughter Doe, along those lines. So yes, extortion is another one, theft, extortion. There are so many violations of the law, and I know that I'm going to be doing more of a deep dive on that to really demonstrate and expose all of that. So Valerie says, they believe they're powerful enough to be beyond scrutiny. They are arrogant. Tammy says, Doe's only sorry because he got caught. He's sorry that he got caught. Oh my gosh. Janice says in Shiawase, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it correctly. And Janice, thank you for emailing this to me previously, that the finance director received the maximum payout allowed from the county's $13.3 million allocation of the American Rescue Plan. That was called ARP. It was the second round of funding. ARP, like SEALs, right? That have to perform for the money. Lower level employees received $1 million to $2 million. You mean she got that money like a bonus? Absolutely despicable. Friends, I couldn't wait to share this news with you. Thank you for being on board. I'm going to get back to my research, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's broadcast, always over at thehealthyamerican.org. More up-to-date information is at the Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. And you know, I will say today, I don't feel like I'm marching it all the way to heaven. I feel like I am flying it to heaven. Thanks for being on board with me.